Hello, my brothers and sisters in law enforcement. This is Lieutenant Joe here for the Blue Heart webcast. Now, while we talk about a lot of training stuff here, we talk about a lot of crime things and this and that, the reality is that as law enforcement officers, our profession is normally at the top of professions where we kill ourselves. This is not good. And there's a lot of writing out there. There's a lot of people talking about it, trying to figure it out. A long time ago, I realized that we deal with very high stress situations. I think I saw a statistic the other day that said the average person witnesses 2, maybe 3 traumatic events in their life. A law enforcement officer that goes through their career witnesses between 400 and 800 traumatic events in their career, which can be devastating mentally to all of us. So while there's a lot of books out there and a lot of people talking about this, the reality is that whether it's on the job when you're active or in retirement, this stress catches up to us, the horrible things that we see every day. And what do? We laugh and joke about them. It's gallows humor. It's a way to survive. But the reality is we're still killing ourselves. We need to stop. All right, so one of the things I thought about when I was a young police officer, being an officer was not my early life goal. It was something that as I got a little older, was doing some schooling, trying to figure out what I was going to be. I got married. I was having kids. What was I going to do? I decided that instead of yelling and screaming at the TV, I would create a career where I could actually do something about the world around me. And that led me to law enforcement. And I loved my career. I had an amazing career. I really enjoyed every minute of it. Ours is a very noble profession. But in the course of that early part of my career, one of the things they made us go to before we graduated the academy, and you probably had to do it as well, was you had to bring in your significant other and talk about the stresses of the job on home life and family. Now, we don't always think of that. We get caught up in the job. It is a very emotionally and mentally challenging job. We have a lot of authority. You know, how many jobs do you go out where they have to teach you physical hand-to-hand combat, where they give you a weapon and they tell you under certain circumstances, you can use this weapon. You could take the life of another person. This is really serious things we have to deal with. And how do we go to the job and do the things that we do, see the crazy things that we deal with, the sadness, the adrenaline dumps, the fear, the hypersensitivity to all the things we see and do? It can ruin your family. It can ruin your relationships. Now, one of the things you're going to find throughout your career is a lot of cops end up divorced. They end up miserable. They end up drinking, using substances, because we're trying to deal with this stress. So as a young police officer, and I had my young wife with me, and we went to this program, and she came out and said, gee, it sounds like a lot of that stuff's going to be hard. Are we going to be okay? And I said, well, we're going to be okay because we're going to keep it forefront in our mind. We're going to think about this, and we're going to try and figure out ways that we can balance my job and the things I need to do at my job and all the stresses that go with that, and our home life, so that we can have a good and decent home life, raise our family, and not have the rigors of law enforcement career interfere with our lives. So I'm writing an article. I'm hoping to get it published in The Blue Magazine, where I write for a lot. You got to go take a look. The Blue Magazine, go take a look at them. An amazing magazine. I've been with them for many years, but I'm going to try and get them to publish it. But in the meantime, I came up with 10 talking points that I want to go over with you about creating a home life work balance being a law enforcement officer. And some of you are going to tune out. I don't need to know that. And I'm telling you, when you go down the road and you see cops becoming alcoholics, their relationships being destroyed, you see them having mental issues, you see them killing themselves. We all need this information. We have to open ourselves up to talking about the realities of our career. It's a great career. It's an amazing thing you can do for your community, to be a law enforcement officer, a corrections officer, to do things service to the public. We got to make sure that that stuff doesn't hurt us. So I'm going to go through these. Number one, acknowledge the weight of the badge. Now, I know when I first became a cop, like I said, I never really thought about it. It was something I kind of fell into, and it became an option, and I decided I would pursue it. Next thing you know, I'm a cop, and I'm working shift work. I'd never worked shift work. I worked in the daytime. I came home, had my afternoons to myself or my family, evenings, dinner with the family, and we went to bed and we slept overnight, got up the next day and started work. Shift work. There's a couple things with it. You will find your personal favorite shift. Some people are day shift people. They just want normal routine. 3 to 11s is usually really busy and exciting, right? That's a fun adrenaline thing, doing cop work. And then midnight shift can also be really interesting, but you're in the dark all the time, and it's overnights. It really hurts your circadian rhythm, so you got to be careful. Then there's understanding and recognizing the weight of the badge. We are authorized to carry weapons 24/7. You are authorized and expected that if you see crime, if you see something going on, you should either make really good observations or you should get involved if someone's being hurt or something. Well, that's a lot of stress on you. What about when you're out with your family and you see something happening? Have you thought about that? Have you discussed this with your significant other, your children, and said, listen, if I say go to the car, that's because I see something going on. Don't argue with me. Go to the car. Means I see something that I may have to take action on, and I need you to be safe so that I can do what I do, right? If we don't have these conversations, they don't know, right? Recognizing that stress is part of this. Recognizing the entire idea of gallows humor. We see something horrible and we make jokes about it. If the public heard us sometimes, I think they would think we're crazy. But that is a coping mechanism. It's how you deal with seeing children who were brutalized, victimized, killed, people who were brutalized, killed, the violence people do to each other. And how do you deal with that? Sometimes we make jokes about it because we're trying to overcome it, because we're tough guys and tough girls, right? We must accept that these are horrible things and we must vent it out. Our department should all have a way for us to do that. All right, next, let's go to number 2. Create a transition ritual between work and home. The whole idea is to separate yourself from the stresses of the job. Now, I lived 20 minutes from the town I worked in, and it gave me a chance to think on the way in and a chance to depressurize on the way home. And it was really very simple. There were 2 main highways that I drove on for 20 minutes. So I left my town where I lived, where my family lived, where everyone I knew, everything I ever did was. And I got on these 2 highways and I popped out in the town I worked in. And for all intents and purposes, I was in another world. It was in another county, in another town. And it gave me that chance on the way to think about, okay, what am I doing today? Let me get my act together. Let me get head together. Do I have things I have to do? Is today a specific day? Is the weather a concern? All those kind of things. As a patrol officer, that's kind of what I prepared myself for. You're going in on a snow day. You're going to be out there directing traffic, or a rain day, or a bad weather day, or a summer day, or maybe there's a big festival going on. You get your head together. And then on the way home, you might have had a stressful shift. You might have seen something horrible. You might have gone through something horrible. You might have had to take actions that were tough, right? It gave me that 20 minutes to decompress. And then I had to say, how much do I want to tell my family about this? How much does my wife and my children want to know about the horrible things I saw today? Now, my wife was interested in my job and what goes on, but I made it a point not to tell her the graphic details, because the average person doesn't see what we see. It doesn't become normal for them like it does for us. So that transition from work to home is important. Find a way to do it. Maybe you're 5 minutes from headquarters. Maybe you stop and get a coffee. Maybe you drive past the park. Maybe you say a prayer on your way in. Faithfulness in law enforcement goes a long way to helping us. So create that transition. Communicate openly with your family. All right, so this is interesting. Families don't need every detail, but they do need to know the honesty of the stress levels that you're experiencing. All right, so in patrol, since everything was kind of brand new each shift, you weren't following up on cases. Every day you went in, you got your briefing, you got your vehicle, you got your equipment, you went out and you answered calls. Maybe it was a stressful day, maybe it wasn't a stressful day. When I got in the detective bureau and specialized units like narcotics, you kind of knew, hey, I'm working on a case and I have to go in and do an interview. I have to go in and see a victim. Maybe you're getting called in. You're getting called in because there's been a robbery or an assault or a homicide or something really bad, a suicide, and you have to go in and deal with that. So that transition time was good. I would prepare myself. So this is an important thing. What did I tell my wife and kids about what I did? Well, I would tell them the good things, the exciting things, the fun things, the nice stories about people that helped each other, or how I helped somebody, or maybe I saved somebody's life pumping on their chest doing CPR or whatever. When it came to the graphic details, I left those out. Over the course of time, if there was something really stressful, my wife was pretty smart. And she would see that maybe it was something that was bothering me. Maybe I saw something that was really bad that involved a child, because that really bothered me, seeing kids victimized. And she would ask very nice questions. Not that she wanted the details. She wanted to let me vent. That's part of this. We have to vent that ugly stuff out of us, or it becomes a cancer that lives with you and can hurt you down the road. So talk openly with them, but they don't need to know the details of the blood and the guts and the gore and the horror and the hatred that we see out there, right? Set boundaries and protect your personal time. Now, one unique thing about a law enforcement career is that we become the job, right? How many people do you see complain about the job? They hate this supervisor, they hate that shift, they hate these people, they go on and on. It seems like, why don't you go get a different job? You're having so many problems here. We don't leave the job. We love the job. It becomes part of who we are. What I always said is we get a backstage pass to life. We get to see things, go places, and do things that the average citizen just does not get to do. That creates a dopamine rush in your body when you do these things. Going to a hot call, lights and sirens. The average person doesn't get to do that. Bashing in a door and chasing somebody down. These are exciting things. We have to admit it. They are exciting. That's, some of the things we like. There's also intense boredom, right? You can go for days without something crazy, or you can be sitting in a car in a long shift, whatever. But set boundaries. As a patrol officer, it was much easier to be done with my shift and have my 3 days off or my 2 days off up ahead of me or whatever, and turn off the job. I turned it off. I'm home now. I can't wait to get home. I'm going to have a cocktail. We're going to have a campfire. We're going to go to Disneyland. We're going to go see friends. And I loved every minute of it. And then I got myself back into it the night before. Okay, I'm going to work tomorrow. Got to make sure I get up on time, get to work, clean uniform, all that kind of stuff. That was easier. As a detective, if you're not on call, you still might get called, right? Do not live it out. If the call comes, it comes, and they need your help, you go in and do it. But do the same thing. If you have cases and you have to deal with people and you have a couple days off, you'll interview them next week. You'll do the search warrant next week. You'll do the surveillance next week. Protect your time so that you're not living cop stuff every minute of your life. That's stressful. Live a normal life, right? See civilian friends, do civilian people things. It will help you to de-stress yourself. All right. Prioritize your sleep like it's part of the job. And I don't mean when you're on the job. I know, there's coopers out there that like to go coop, and that's not safe. That's not good. Don't ever coop. Don't ever sleep on the job. Stay awake. If you're tired, go inside, take a break, get a cup of coffee. Do not sleep on the job. It is dangerous, and it's not the right thing to do, especially in this day and age when people will ambush us any chance they get. So don't sleep on the job. When I became a supervisor, I remembered what it was like. Midnights are hard. It's not normal to be awake in the middle of the night. And I remember saying to my officers, listen, if you're really having a hard time out there, come into headquarters. Come in and sit down, and we'll talk for 10, 15 minutes. Stop and get a cup of coffee. Two of yous go side by side. And the first person talk for 10, 15 minutes, then the second person talk for 10, 15 minutes. Get through the tour. Don't crash the car. Don't hide behind buildings, right? But when you're home, make sure you take time to sleep. Sleep is part of our health routine. A lot of you working out, you're out there working out, you're drinking the protein shakes every 5 minutes. Make sure you get your sleep. Make sure you sleep and you get a good solid sleep, right? Not unrestful sleep where you're waking up and walking around. De-stress and get good solid sleep. It'll help you in every part of your life. All right, so that's 5. We got 5 going. Here comes 5 more. All right. Use physical activity as a stress relief. So working out is important for lots of reasons. Okay, first of all, it does de-stress you. It keeps you strong and fit. As you go through your career, how many times do we see cops that as they go along, just like most people in life, as they get older, you go through your 20s, you're healthy, you're a strong young buck or a young lady, and you're powerful, you're working out. Then you get into your 30s and family slows you down. Life slows you down. You put on a few pounds. You stop going to the gym, and next thing you know, you see, you got the buttons on your shirt straining like this. Whoa, it's going to pop and take somebody's eye out. Make sure you do the right thing. Stay in shape for lots of reasons. Number one, it's good for your health. Staying in shape, working out helps you to sleep better, helps you to de-stress, right? But staying in shape helps you when you have all of a sudden an emergency call and you're 36 years old now, and you have to run and chase somebody so you don't have a heart attack. Right? Go get health screened. Make sure you get health screening. In New Jersey, you can go to one of my sponsors here is medicalessentialdiagnostics.com. You can get screened for no cost to you and find out, make sure you're okay. Stay healthy, right? The other thing working out is if you don't think the minute you step out of that car or you step onto the scene of something, the bad people there are sizing you up immediately. They're thinking, can I beat this cop? Can I run away from this cop? Can I take this cop? And if you get out and you're in good shape, your uniform is clean, your suit is nice and clean, you have a great command presence because you physically take care of yourself, those people are going to think twice before they attack you or before they do something, right? So it's important. Stay healthy. It'll help you. Lean on peer support and mentorship. Number 7, peer support. Now, we all know cops like to bust each other's chops mercilessly. We always have jokers and they make fun of everybody. And there's, people that they pick on and everybody's personality. It's like high school. My wife used to call police work high school with guns, football with guns. That's really what you guys and girls are. And that's true. But we need to have people we can talk to. It's one thing to make jokes and this and that, but make sure that there's some mechanism in your PD that if you saw something, if you got involved in something, there's a way for you to talk about it, right? We had some pretty serious, horrible scenes, and we put together a whole process with our human services department in our town where a psychologist would come in and talk to everybody involved to vent out the cancer of what we saw so we could move on. Very important. Talk to people. Reach out to somebody. Reach out to your training officer. Reach out to a senior officer or a retired person that's been down this road, right? See if they can help you through this. Has this ever happened? Sometimes you want to talk to people outside your department. One of the problems we have in our profession is that if you're having a hard time and you come forward, first thing they do is what? Take your gun and badge. So a lot of people don't go forward, right? We have to change that because there's a lot of things you don't need your gun and badge taken for. Just because you're having a problem, you're dealing with stress. So we need to work on that. But go talk to somebody in confidence, right? Get your head straight. This is a long career. It's a stressful career. Take care of yourself. All right. Recognize early signs of burnout. All right. So let's see. Irritability, emotional numbness, withdrawal, trouble sleeping can all be indicators of a problem. We get this us or them kind of mentality. It's us or them. The people are, against the cops. And it's really not that way. For the most part, in most of our communities, the people love the law enforcement, even if they don't say it. They love the cops. They love seeing you at events. They love that you keep them safe. They like seeing your cop car drive through the neighborhood because it helps them to have a good and decent life, right? But if we start to get totally cold to things, That's a sign of emotional burnout, and it could be a psychological burnout. You see something horrible and I don't care. Well, you see a child or a person victimized really bad. We don't have to break down and cry over it. But the reality is you should feel those emotions. If you stop to feel emotions, if you don't feel them anymore, that you're numb to what we see out there, then you're going to be numb to the people around you. You're going to be numb to your relationships. You're going to be numb to your family and friends, right? So that's a sign that maybe you need to talk to somebody or do something about it. Change your perspective. Do something else, right? Maybe get a different assignment. If you're not in a unit, I know it's hard to move from unit to unit, but think about it. Think about, how do I change? Maybe I pick up a hobby or do something to break that bond of stress at work that's made me cold and unfeeling. That's not how we should be. That leads to other problems later on, okay? Make time for activities that have nothing to do with the job. This is reoccurring, but this is true. How many of you, do you like photography? On your days off, go take pictures. After work, go take pictures. You like to surf. One of our cops was a surfer. Go surf. Fishing. Take up a hobby. I was a guitar guy. I played guitar. I found people to play guitar with, right? When I was off duty, I would go and play music because I liked it. It was different. Take time to live, not just the job. And the first couple of years, I know it's tough because it's overwhelming, this job, especially if you're in a busy place. Your day is filled with adrenaline. And then on your days off, you're watching cop shows or you're thinking about it. Break the chain. Live like a regular person. Reinvigorate yourself. So when you go back, you're an officer of value. All right. And number 10, normalize asking for professional help. Now, that's probably 3 or 4 of these things here are on here. And that's what we as a profession have got to figure out. And our agencies have got to figure it out. Our attorney general's office has got to figure out. How can somebody come forward with something that's bothering them without suffering such a? I'm a plumber and I show up and say, I'm having a hard time, doing this. They don't take your tools away from you, tell you can't do your job. There are some things that if you're suffering from suicidal ideations, you're thinking of, you hate people and, you've gotten to the point where you can't control yourself, using, violence or whatever. Yeah, you probably shouldn't be out there every single day. You probably shouldn't be. You're a danger to yourself and others. But other than that, you're having stress because you saw something horrible or you've seen a lot. You've been on a unit that does a lot of tough things like that. That's not a reason to take your gun and badge. And we have to work with the psychological community and our agencies to figure out guidelines where somebody can come forward without losing their career, because that keeps a lot of people who would come forward from stepping up. All right, so I didn't want to take forever with this, but I wanted to cover these things. Take a look for the article. The bottom line is it's a long career. Let me ask you this. If you're happily married or you're happily with a significant other right now, you're raising children or you want to raise children, 7 years from now, do you want to have that relationship break up? Do you want to find yourself drinking so much 10 years from now that you can't function? Do you want to find out that you're so stressed out that you are thinking of hurting yourself? No, we don't want to do any of those things, right? So we have to balance our work, life, home, so that we can enjoy our lives and do our jobs. I did a whole career, high stress stuff, crazy things I saw. I learned this stuff early on. And I saw some cops really struggle with lots of these things. And I said to myself, I don't want that to happen. I enjoyed going home to my family. I enjoyed my civilian friends. I enjoyed my hobbies. And I loved putting on the uniform. I loved kicking doors. I loved locking up bad guys and girls. I loved doing interviews and getting confessions. They were different parts of my life that I loved, but I put them in balance. You are a person. At some point, the career comes to an end. We are blessed. We get pensions that we can retire relatively young, most of us in our 50s. You have a whole nother chance at another career. I am on my 3rd career, and I keep my hand in things doing this podcast. I teach, I write about law enforcement. I write articles. I go out there, I work with private companies, and I use my investigative skills to keep me involved in things. There's lots that you can do, but you have to protect yourself. Watch out for your family. Nobody wants to have their family life ruined down the road. You want to enjoy it. Ours is a noble profession. It is a great profession. Enjoy it, but also enjoy your real life. So I want to thank our sponsors, Blue 360 Media, who publish my books, medicalessentialdiagnostics.com, who make sure you can stay healthy, and The Blue Magazine, right? I'm going to be on there more. I'm going to be the criminal investigations expert for The Blue Magazine. I'm very proud of that. So make sure you take a look at all those sponsors, get my books, like and subscribe to the channel, and tell other people about it. This is our place, right? The Blue Heart Webcast. It's for all of us who dedicate our lives to law enforcement and helping others. So I'll be back shortly. Thanks for listening, and take care of yourself. Have a great life.